Welcome back to San Antonio Living. I'm Shelly Miles. The next 30 minutes, we are going to spend talking with our friends from SOBA, Texas. It's a recovery center nestled in the Hill Country. It's a place where you can go to get answers to your questions and find the path to sobriety. And joining us to tell us a little bit more, the CEO of SOBA Texas, Greg Hanley, is here, along with Alex Dragici, Director of Operations, and actor Daniel Baldwin, who's been joining us for the last year to talk about SOBA recovery and, of course, give us a little guidance into recovery. It's good to see you guys. Thank you for coming this morning.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
You know, this is the perfect time to talk because spring break is right around the corner, and that's the time when a lot of us show our wild side, and sometimes it goes a little too far. And I think a lot of people can identify with the fact that they may or may not need help, and that's what this half hour is dedicated to. Greg, tell us a little bit about SOBA Texas, because I know there's a location, several locations. We've got one in California, but why Texas? Why here in San Antonio?
Well, it needed it. We're here making a movie, and Daniel, on your show, announced that I was donating the profits of the movie to recovery in San Antonio. And we looked around for a place to donate and found out the city was really underserved. So we bought a ranch by SeaWorld, and you know, we've been helping people here for about a year now.
Alex, are you surprised at the amount of phone calls you get? People asking questions, trying to find out where you are, people asking for help?
I don't think I'm gonna ever get used to it. It's an overwhelming amount of people. I think, you know, we've been open about 10 months now. We filled up in the first month.
Right.
So that's why we're expanding and trying to help more people. But it's anywhere and everywhere that somebody sees one of us or just me, if they go out of town, that's all. Everybody comes up and goes, "Can I talk to you? Can I get a card? I have somebody."
I think that's so great that you're here and that you're available to people and that you're handing those cards out, because if I knew someone that was an addict, I wouldn't know where to send them. Thanks to you, I now know where I can get help. And I don't think that there was a voice here in San Antonio before SOBA Texas came into play. So certainly thank you for being here. Daniel, what's your connection to all this? I love seeing you here on San Antonio Living, don't get me wrong. The viewers, explain to them how you're connected.
One of the most dumbfounding things to me is, after a 127 film career and being one of 4 brothers in the family, I have a new identity. It's not, hey, you're the guy on that show, or hey, you're the actor in that movie, or you're one of the Baldwins. Hey, you're the guy on SOBA. So I now have that. I walk around feeling, I watch your show. My connection is to be of service, and my good friends sitting to the left of me who helped save my life, particularly Greg and the SOBA program. I had gone to rehab 8 times before I landed in the SOBA program, and have stayed sober for the first time in my life for any amount of time. So, you know, there's nothing I wouldn't do to thank Greg and his program for restoring me my life, and as a father and a human being.
Well, we certainly thank you for being here as well, because I think it really helps people to understand that, you know, there is hope. You can recover, even if it takes a few times. There is a path, and we are ready for you to start walking down it. I want to talk about an article that I saw. This was in the Dr. Oz magazine. It was talking about the new face of heroin addiction. And I feel like I'm pretty hip, right? You know, I keep in touch with the times, and apparently I'm not, because this article basically said that moms are using heroin, executives are using heroin, people with a ton of money are using heroin, and that really shocked me. I mean, I wouldn't even know where to go to get that. But apparently people that are just like me, who are on television, who have an education or whatever, are finding heroin and using it. Do you find that that is a common drug now?
Yeah, it's
really?
The most common.
You're kidding.
And although that's kind of not really true, it is prescription pills. So what happens is people get addicted to painkillers quite by accident. I don't know a lot of people who just get them and to get addicted, and then once they become addicted, they'll run out of them quickly, or they can't afford them and they have to start buying them from somebody.
Okay.
And the same people that are dealing pills are dealing heroin. And sooner or later, you know, at $30, $40, $50 a pill, or $10 for heroin, they're gonna, you know, if you don't have $50 and you're gonna get sick, then you're gonna smoke some heroin. And it always is something that they're just gonna do once. And, you know, but across the board, the addicts that come in that are on heroin, probably 95% of them start out with prescription pills.
Okay.
The kids start out with mom's pills or grandma's pills, or it's people that went to the dentist, or they got a surgery or got a back accident and they just run out or can't afford them.
Yeah. So do you treat heroin addicts at SOBA Texas? Is that something that you can help people with?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Heroin addicts, pill addicts, people with alcohol, pretty much people that have something that's interfering with them having a good life.
Okay. I'll tell you what, if this is something that you're dealing with, maybe you, someone in your family, and you've got questions for us this morning, tweet us. You can follow us along on Twitter. Use the hashtag SOBA at SA Living will also work. And you can send us an email if you've got a question. It's living@news4sa.com. We'll be sharing some of your questions here during the next couple of minutes. And if you don't want us to use your name, no problem. Don't even put it on there. We'll be answering those questions when we come back. Welcome back to San Antonio Living this morning. We're chatting with our friends from SOBA Texas. Of course, you see them here at least once a month. We're reaching out and trying to help people here in San Antonio struggling with addictions. Greg Hanley is the CEO. Alex Dragici is the Director of Operations, and actor Daniel Baldwin, good friend of these guys, good friend of SOBA, and basically just here to help. So I've got some questions that came in this morning from our viewers. Are you ready? And whoever wants, answer. No format here. But this is from Peggy. Peggy says, I'm living with someone who's a recovering alcoholic. This person has fallen off the wagon several times. I don't understand why they can't get a grip on this. What would you say to someone like me who's trying to understand addiction? That's a tough question.
Well, a couple of things. It'd be a good idea for her to maybe go to a 12-step meeting for somebody who has somebody in their home that's drinking.
Okay.
And the thing is this, that it's very hard for people who have relapsed to get back to it, and it's very embarrassing. They have, it's like they're spiritually, they're very twisted up, and you know, it's okay to guide them and talk to them, and because they don't want to be doing that,
right?
For sure, especially, and I've seen some people with long-term recovery that, like 25 years, that had to show up to start over again, and it was, and they say it's more difficult even to go back, because you, you know, again, you're embarrassed about it. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. If you're drinking again, then, you know, come back.
I think that's generally, you know, people want to help, but they can't understand because they're not the addict. And it's just a common, you know, tug of war trying to understand. They want to help, but they don't get it. And what you mentioned about going to a meeting for someone who's dealing with an alcoholic, I think that's a great point. And of course, there's several meetings around San Antonio. If you've got questions, you can contact SOBA. This is a question from Alan. Alan says, alcoholism, hereditary or a choice you make?
Well, there is definitely identified by the AMA a genetic predisposition in many cases for people, a propensity to migrate to drugs and alcohol. So that can be, but usually there are a series of behaviors and sometimes traumas that occur in people's lives that also trigger that genetic predisposition.
Okay. If there's a viewer at home who has alcoholics or addicts in their family, and they've got children, and they want to, you know, protect their children from growing up the way that their dad did, or their mom did, or their grandparents, is there anything that you can do, anything to suggest?
Talk about it.
Yeah.
My kids, my son is 17 and my daughter is 14, and they've yet to have, knock on wood, a drink, because from an early age, I told them they might be allergic to it too. My daughter, she is certain she is, so she doesn't want to try it with
She's calling
with
right
anybody.
now. Dad, are you talking about me?
Yeah. And my son just wants nothing to do with it because he knows that it'll interfere with him having a good life.
Yeah, it's really important to get out there, to talk about the situation, and I think the more information you have, the more open you are about what may or may not be going on in your family, the easier it is for people to deal.
Just like Greg's kids, though, they're really proud of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, he talks about how much time and how long he's been sober. Both of his kids like to say, well, I have more time than you.
Yeah.
You know, I have 17 years, I have 14 years, and it's a really nice thing.
And they had something to lose. So it's kind of like back in our time, it was a rite of passage, or it was, and I talk about people, there's a lot of famous people that have never done anything, that are very, and they need to know that they don't have to do that. And it's a choice at that time.
Yeah.
And they're making good choices because we have talked about it a lot.
Daniel, I see you over there. I know you have something to say.
No, I just think that it's very interesting that you hear Greg talk about, his two kids, and then both of them saying earlier on in this question about it being a conversation and talk about it. It's not a coincidence that their children, who hear them constantly talking to admissions people that want to come in, and mothers and fathers of children that are having problems, their kids hear that all the time. They have a great awareness of this problem, because they speak to their children directly, but they're also privy to hearing these conversations every day. So they're quite aware of the consequences that can occur and the dangers of drinking and doing drugs. It really does start with that conversation.
It does. It's an important conversation to have at home with your kids, with your family. And if you need help starting that conversation, the SOBA Texas website has a lot of great information. Check it out. And of course, you can always call Alex when he's done with the show. He's got information as well. If you need help, the number is there at the bottom of your screen. It's SOBA Texas, and we've got more when we come back. Welcome back to San Antonio Living. This morning we are talking with our friends from SOBA Texas. It's a recovery facility up in the Texas Hill Country, and Greg Hanley is the CEO, brought SOBA Texas to San Antonio. Alex Sturgici, the Director of Operations, and actor Daniel Baldwin, who is good friends with these guys and kind enough to share his story about recovery here on San Antonio Living and with you guys. We are taking your questions, and we've got a special email set up for you this morning. It's SA@News4SA. You can also tweet us. And some of these questions came from there. I think this is an important question. This came from a young woman whose name is Shannon. She says, tough love. It's said to let them hit their bottom. We've tried. We've put them in treatment. We've kicked him out. He's stolen. He's lied. Every time I see a news report, I think of my son. He says we are the bad ones and that he hates us. And as a parent, it's so hard, right? You want to love your kids. You want to help them, but they end up hating you. What advice could you give to someone like Shannon?
It's the worst. I feel for Shannon, and I'm not a big fan of tough love. So you've done all these things, and now what? Now he isn't talking to you, and he's gone, and he's on the street, and you're freaked out and everything else. What if the approach is different, and we treat somebody like they're sick and not bad? And yeah, all of those things that went on that were just described are kind of a byproduct of somebody trying to stay high or get high, and yeah, they steal and lie and do all of that stuff. And it's kind of like this, you can tough love them into the cemetery, and or you can guide them into recovery, and they just haven't found it yet. But don't give up. Shannon, don't give up.
Alex, when someone like Shannon brings her son or her daughter out to SOBA Texas, can you help them work together to find an end result, which is recovery?
I do my absolute best, and every single one of our staff members does. The one thing that seems to work when somebody does come out to do a tour, if we do have a bed, I think there's not one person who's come to do a tour and not stayed.
Yeah.
And it's not me. It's the combination of the SOBA culture. And when they see another resident there, and another resident comes and says hello, and they relate, that's what gets people to.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you've heard Greg do it before, that sense of, like,
Yeah.
I got some hope, I got something.
It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like punishment either.
It's not.
And he
Sure.
might have walked out of a treatment center that was a punishing environment or a hospital environment or something that didn't feel like a good place to be. And you never know.
Daniel, have you been in that position where you've been tough loved, too much?
Yeah.
How does it feel? Like, what's going through your
The gun
head?
to my head from the network, you know, that kind of thing, from jobs, family members. But you see, there's a problem here, and it's the familiarity and the acceptance of the term disease. If I said your son, the same Shannon's 19-year-old, whatever boy, had cancer, immediately everyone would be going, oh my goodness, how can I don't want to get chemo treatments. I don't want to, and we all jump to high alert when we hear cancer. This child has cancer. There's a genetic predisposition. It's acknowledged as a disease. This is a sick person, and this sick person needs help. It's an emergency.
Analogy.
They need help.
It really is.
And so if you don't, that's where Greg is right. The times that I had the gun to my head, when I finally got it, was someone who put his hands out to me and said, don't you want to stop this?
Yeah.
And welcomed me, as opposed to telling me and denouncing and shaming me. And that doesn't work very often.
All right, Shannon, if you're watching this morning, when we come back, we're going to give you all the information you need to contact SOBA Texas. We'll talk a little bit about insurance. We've got you covered when we come back. Welcome back to San Antonio Living. Thank you for joining us this morning. We've been talking about recovery, addiction. There is a place here in the Texas Hill Country that is ready to help you. Hopefully we've answered your questions. If you've got more questions, a lot of great resources online. Greg Hanley is the CEO, Alex Dragici, the Director of Operations, and Daniel Baldwin, good friend, in recovery as well, and just offering great information and inspiration. All of you guys, thank you so much for answering the viewer questions this morning. You guys take insurance, lots of options out there for you. If you need help, contact the folks at SOBA Texas. Take a look at your screen. All of the information is there for you. It's sobatexas.com. You can email the guys. You can find them on Facebook, on Twitter, and of course, give them a call if you've got questions, sobatexas.com.